I'm elated to be here with you today, Congresswoman Nikema Williams. You've stepped in some big shoes, but you're doing an awesome job. And being a resident of South Fulton County, we're so proud of you. Tell us a little bit about what has been going on and what you have experienced since you've been down in Washington, D.C.
So, Mayor Edwards, it's been 10 months, and what a 10 months it has been. When I first got to Congress, I think we all saw what happened on day number 3 after I got sworn in. We had the insurrection of the Capitol, and I was like, what did they send me up here to do? But it has only made me more resolved in the work that I have to do to bring resources back to the district, to continue to represent our communities, to make sure that we're getting what we need. And this is the time to do it. I'm on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And right now, I think we've all heard the buzzword infrastructure and what that means. I mean, you and I have toured the city of South Fulton, and we went on an infrastructure tour. And so right now, it's about making sure that we continue to elevate the needs of our communities, because there are so many people that are looking to represent their areas. And so it is a benefit to us that I'm on the Financial Services Committee, that I'm on Transportation and Infrastructure, because that's when we were able to make sure that our voices are heard. And out of 435 members, there's only a few of us on those exact committees. And so that means money for affordable housing, money for our bridges, money for our water infrastructure, and then all of those social needs that we have out there, the human infrastructure, like childcare, so that we have people to drive on these roads when they're getting to work, but we can't go to work if our children aren't taken care of. So I'm looking forward to continuing working with you. You were one of the first city visits that I did out of all of the cities in the 5th Congressional District, and so I'm looking forward to the continued partnership.
I remember the insurrection. I called you. And you answered the phone, and I was like, I don't know whether she's under a table or whatever the case may be, but you answered the phone. And I guess that has been kind of you never would have thought in your wildest dreams that something like that would have happened, especially in Washington, D.C., but it did.
I remember that morning because I had just gotten sworn in 3 days earlier, and I had my 5-year-old son and my husband were still in D.C. with me, and they had told us, Capitol Police said, get there early before the protests start. And I was like, oh, once I get to the Capitol, we'll be safe and I don't have to worry about anything. Never did I imagine that inside of the United States Capitol, we would be unsafe.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this infrastructure, because it's important that our city and other cities need federal support in terms of our infrastructure needs. What can we do as a city to help you to push forward roads and other types of construction? I don't want you to be there and someone say, well, they haven't said nothing. So what can we do as a city to make sure that you understand our needs and we move forward?
So one thing that I don't have to worry about with you, Mayor Edwards, is you letting me know what you need, because I hear from you when I ask for suggestions and when I don't, but that's okay. You make sure that the voices of the citizens in South Fulton are heard in Washington, D.C., and that's why it was so important to do that early infrastructure tour with you, so that when I'm talking about things in committee, it's not just abstract. It's not just something that someone on a team in a department sent me from your office. It's what I actually saw with my own eyes, and I can describe that when I'm fighting for the funds that you need. So things like that are critically important, but continuing to elevate those needs, staying in touch with my staff, and that is something that you are really great with in your administration, and making sure that we know exactly what is happening on the ground. And also working with other local leaders. So, you know, the city of South Fulton is split amongst 2 congressional districts with Congressman David Scott and myself. And so making sure that we both understand what the needs are so that we can work together. So I appreciate the way that you have a good way of elevating your needs and making sure that we don't have to come to you to ask what is needed. You're bringing it to us before we already get there.
And it's important that you know that you do have two congressmen, but you took the whole tour.
I did.
It didn't matter where it was in Davis, Scott.
You took me to parts of this area that I didn't even know existed.
Well, we had to. We wanted to make sure you saw the whole picture.
I mean, I'm sure people at home don't want to hear about the septic tanks and all of that, but those are the critical infrastructure things that we have to talk about. And as a mayor of a city, those are not the cool things that people want to hear about, but it's what keeps you up at night, where you have to think about how are people getting the water that they need just to live their daily lives.
When you talk about $18 million just in bridges alone in our city, and I'm alerted all the time as to what would really happen if a bridge actually collapsed in our city.
And we've seen that in places across the country, and we don't want that to happen here. So that's why passing things like the American Rescue Plan, where we're able to get direct dollars back to cities, and the infrastructure bill that you've heard a lot about recently, that's why these things are so critical, because we can't wait until something happens to address it. If we know that a problem is coming or something hasn't been addressed in years, then we need to be proactive and start making things happen on the national level to make sure that we're taking care of our communities.
Let's talk a little bit about CARES and the American Rescue Plan and our designation right now as an entitlement city, which really helps us a lot. But during the time of CARES, we output a lot of money that we did not budget for in terms of PPE and all this stuff. And then what happened was when the federal government, as you know, sent the money down, they sent it to the commissions, to the county. And it's
now, I want you to know that was before I got elected to Congress.
I know. But it really was like, once the money got there, it was like, well, I don't have to give you anything. But they began to give us a pittance of things.
Yeah.
And so the 14 mayors of the 14 cities here in Fulton County got together, and one of the first times, we got together and said, listen, guys, we've expensed all of this money on the CARES. What you're giving us is just a pittance. Talk to us a little bit about, and that and what we are doing with the monies we got now, and the fact that we're now becoming an entitlement city.
So I remember the day that meeting was happening. I was also in a meeting up in Washington, and I saw a councilwoman, Helen Willis, was talking about it, and I'm like, okay, I need to be paying attention to this because this is exactly what we're talking about right now. And that's when a group of members of Congress came together to make sure that we designated, we didn't have this threshold for population for you to get direct funding through the American Rescue Plan, so that cities could get direct funding and didn't have to wait for the larger counties like Fulton County or the city of Atlanta to disperse funds as they saw fit. And that made all the difference in the way cities were able to function, because we all saw what happened with the new iteration of the Delta variant and what we're still going through now, and people still needing help with food. And the city of South Fulton has been so great in making sure that that you have partnered with other groups like the Atlanta Community Food Bank to get food out to people and things like that, where you're having to pay out of your pocket. Now you can take it from funds through the American Rescue Plan, and people became dependent on that when the economy wasn't quite back to where we needed it to be. But we came together because we heard people across the country from smaller municipalities who were like, why do we have to wait on someone else to grant us the funds when we are the direct resource to the communities that we're serving? And so we wanted to clear that up in the American Rescue Plan, and we did.
Well, you actually did, and us being able to have over 500,000 people create a great opportunity for us in that we receive our money directly, and we are receiving it now, so thanks to you and the rest of it. One thing I want to talk about too is, I want to talk about COVID, but I want to talk about it in perspective of education. My schools here in our city, only 20% of our students have been vaccinated. You've been around long enough to know that in South Fulton we've had issues as it pertains to our schools and how we are performing. But we have overcome those issues, and we are moving up the ladder with schools like Westlake and Creekside and Langston Hughes, and we got a new STEM school that's coming into South Fulton. We're trying to turn the tide of we need to have face-to-face learning. We're finding that if we don't have face-to-face learning, all those things that we tried to do over the years to elevate our schools, we're reverting back. You know, and so that's very important. What is your thoughts on it?
So I have a 6-year-old son, my first grader, my Carter cakes, and I've been through it with all of the parents in South Fulton as they've been through the school shutting down and not knowing like if they were going to have childcare or not knowing what the learning loss was going to be during virtual learning. So Mayor Edwards, Carter started kindergarten virtually. And I don't know how you teach kindergarten through a computer screen without someone sitting right there with you to make sure that you're getting what you need, because he's antsy, he doesn't want to sit still, and it's his first time in real school, and it started in front of a computer screen. And so that's when I knew that I needed to start speaking up more as a leader and making sure that our schools were getting the resources that they need. I was fortunate to bring the Secretary of Education to the district to tour some schools that were using their American Rescue Plan funds to change the ventilation systems so that even in elementary schools where children can't be vaccinated yet, they're able to make sure that the air was safe enough so that the students could still learn safely. And so that's what we are continuing to look at through our education secretary, making sure that even the students who can't be vaccinated can still learn safely, because we know that students learn better when they're in person with the teacher helping them. Teachers are a profession that should be elevated because they are doing the work that most of us cannot do. And there's a reason that you have to have special training and education to teach our children. And we shouldn't take it for granted. And I think for far too long, we've taken it for granted. And now during the pandemic, we've seen just how critical it is for children to be in classrooms with well-trained teachers to get them the information that they need. It's made all the difference.
Well, Carter Cakes is probably one of the most famous kids on YouTube or anything else.
I tried to get him to come with me. He's on fall break. He said, "No, mommy, I'm not coming."
You know, you've been a lot around the city of South Fulton and living here and representing the people here. We've been a city for going on 4 years now.
Has it been 4 years?
Yeah, it's been 4 years now. And by you being here, you know, it's been a struggle when we first started to where we are today. What is your perspective of what have we done as a city? Pros or cons, you know, and people want to hear from you because you're a part of our family.
Well, I will say the city of South Fulton's best days are ahead of her. I remember the beginnings of the city of South Fulton. The first iteration, when I was not elected to anything, you were still in the county commission. And so we've come a long way since then. And then even serving in the state senate, I represented the city of South Fulton. And I remember working directly with you as we worked out some of the kinks and what we initially thought needed to be in a city charter and some changes that needed to be made, because when you know better, you do better.
Right.
And that's what we've done. And so I am proud of your leadership in a brand new city coming in, and the changes that, like, even being here in this building today, that like acquiring some of the property that the city of South Fulton now owns and operates has been a big task. And I think a lot of people don't understand like all of the details that come through with that, but I remember the struggle with Fulton Industrial Boulevard. I know what we went through legislative session after legislative session and how you were there every step of the way, making sure that the representatives in the state legislature that represented the city understood exactly where we were, what was at stake. And I remember having conversations with people because I represented the city of Atlanta as well. And so people thought I would naturally like align with the city of Atlanta. But I remember the conversation with you talking about the students in Fulton County schools that would miss out. It was never about just the money for tax revenue, but you took it back to what was at stake for those students who would lose so much money from the school budget if we didn't get this right. And I remember having that conversation with whoever would listen, because there was no way that I was going to leave the students that were in Fulton County schools in the city of South Fulton behind. And so I'm grateful for your leadership and getting it done and what that's going to mean for the entire city of South Fulton now.
Well, as you mentioned Fulton Industrial Boulevard, you were so helpful. I know that jurisdictionally, some people were kind of tied one way or the other. But I can tell you the important thing about Fulton Industrial Boulevard and what we did this time, and we actually did it, is the fact that when we put the legislation back in, 2 of our senators were out sick. That scared me for a while. So as we got past the General Assembly, we went over to the Senate, and I was faced with a rookie senator by the name of Sonia Halpern. And I can tell you, she did a phenomenal job in listening, trying to bridge the gap with each other. So when we had our meeting with Sonia convened, we sat there and I laid it on the table. I said, I'll start the conversation off. We'll take from I-20 South. Everybody's taking from I-20 North. Never in my wildest imagination that statement would grow legs. And we went through it, and then we finally said, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And so, for 3 years we tried. But to come up in this 4th year and get a unanimous vote out of both the House, and what I told our council was, listen, relationships mean everything.
Everything.
Let me have it. We're not going to hire attorneys. We're not going to, just let me have it and hush. All right? And that's what they did.
And some people might look at you as a new mayor because it's a new city, but you've been around a while. And so, relationships are so critical. And the areas that you served in the county commission, people that are in leadership are still there. So you've been in the trenches and built those relationships that you can't, it doesn't come with just having the title of being mayor. That comes with the hard work that you've put in over the years.
And one things about cities that we continue to talk about is a top issue with most cities in the country. Let's talk about the issue of crime and where we are and how can the federal government assist us in lowering our crime rates. Of course, our particular city, we're down 35% over the past almost 4 years.
Well, and you have an excellent police chief, which
more don't tell him that. but he's a wonderful guy. Our homicide rate is 96% closure.
Wow.
Now this is a city of South Fulton, just right outside the city of Atlanta, who has some issues as it pertains to crime. How can the federal government help us even further lower that rate of crime and assist us with programming in our city?
So I will say, I know you said don't let it go to his head and don't tell him, but Chief Meadows, he even reaches out to me as a member of Congress.
Yes.
And I heard from him maybe a month ago about a federal grant that he'd been trying to work through and hadn't heard back from. And so even just continuing to make sure that those relationships are there. Relationships matter. You said it best. You can't replace a relationship. To know that he can just pick up the phone and call his member of Congress to talk about a federal grant that he's been trying to get for the police department, which makes a world of difference in making sure that we are able to do the programmatic work to not just address the after the crimes have happened, but doing things to prevent crimes from happening. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I'm grateful for those partnerships. And then also looking at how we move forward with partnerships in other local municipalities. Mm-hmm. And as a member of Congress, while I'm not directly doing the work on the local level, bringing those local leaders together is key. And so I know that we're going through a mayoral race right now in the city of Atlanta, and we'll see how that turns out. And we will likely get a new police chief, but convening that conversation so that, because when crime happens, we know coming down Cascade, some people don't know if they're in the city of Atlanta or the city of South Fulton. And so we need to make sure that the cross-jurisdictional work is happening, and that when we're bringing resources, we're looking at it as an area as a whole, because when somebody's driving through neighborhoods, they don't know what city they're in. Right. But we need to make sure that we have the resources to serve all of our citizens and keep them all safe. Well,
let me correct something. I think Chief Meadows is the greatest police chief in America. I want to correct that. But there's the other chief I have. His name is Jones, and he's over our fire department. Yes. And let me tell you, without the SAFER grants from the federal government, mm-hmm. I don't know how we could actually maintain a fire program. Sometimes we have to sit on edge and say, are they going to do something with SAFER? And the prohibit us from getting it. But that is the money that we use to hire our fire providers, our fire professionals. And I wanted to talk to you about that a minute. It's important that each year our fire department get that grant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these are the things that citizens don't think about every day, and they shouldn't have to, because they leave it up to the leaders to make sure that they're getting what they need, that you're hiring the right talent to make sure that we're meeting the standards to get the grants, and having the right people in the national office to bring the resources back. And that's something that citizens of South Fulton shouldn't have to think about, because when they call for fire services, it should be there. And so it's up to us to make sure that is happening.
And you're so right. I was just hoping as we move into the future that those grant opportunities that we don't know about, that you please alert us to where, because people understand you pay taxes, but it's so much more.
Absolutely.
And if it hadn't been for federal government assistance and even state assistance in a lot of areas to help us to achieve.
And they get a lot of their money from the federal government
Absolutely.
that they're sending you.
Absolutely.
I just noticed last week there was a notice that our governor is giving bonuses to first responders. And I said, thanks to the American Rescue Plan,
Absolutely.
we're able to make sure that our governor is able to give grants and bonuses to our first responders across the state.
Trust me, I've had first responders come to my office and say, did you apply for that?
So those are federal dollars
Yes.
I brought back to the state of Georgia.
And that's important. And they need to know, as well as what we do, they need to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of what we do depends on what you're doing. Yes. And so we're just proud to have you, as our congressman or congresswoman. Congresswoman. And look, you ain't said y'all enough. You ain't said y'all one time.
And I say it all the time.
She's talking about y'all. You fill some big shoes. Tell me about how does that feel for you? Are you intimidated by it? Or you like that? Or how does it feel to come behind such a great man?
So I was fortunate to know Mr. Lewis on a very personal level. My husband worked for him on his campaigns and in his congressional office, and so I got to know him better than most people. And so I feel prepared. I feel like he has laid the blueprint, and I know exactly what's at stake and what needs to be done and who's counting on me. There are so many people that are depending on me to get this right that I didn't have the honeymoon phase to come in and try and figure it out, because we hit the ground running on day one, and getting resources and addressing COVID and getting funds back to the district, and the infrastructure bill came. So everything was coming at us full speed ahead, the voting issues, everything all at once. And so I feel like I was prepared for this moment, and I remind myself that oftentimes you don't choose the moment chooses you. And it's only been 10 months, but I feel like I have represented the district as if I've been up there for years.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you this. I know you've been there for a while. Are you getting in good trouble?
Oh, good trouble. I think sometimes they get tired of hearing me, because I've never been short on opinions, Mayor, and I make sure that my people are represented, because if I don't, who will?
I see your relationship with Nancy Pelosi and other things that you're doing, and I see that you're opening some of the meetings. It's just proud of us. You come from us. You are a family member, and you're just going up there and making a name for not only yourself, but I really think that you're making a name for us too, because we have so many people in our communities can do so much. And so we're just proud of you. We appreciate you and all that you've done. We can't do it without you. I'm glad to know I got your cell phone number.
And I know you will use it.
So that we can have things going around. But we're glad to have you, and stay in some good trouble.
That's the plan.
That's what John Lewis would want you to do, is to stay in good trouble. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you for being here today. And this is just another session of Chat with the Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm looking forward to the continued partnership.
We will do that. Thank you.